But by the way the hydrogeologists have been describing it, that are tracking it, it sounds like it's going to eventually hit Lake Bel Air, and it'll be just like the Cedar River, what it's doing right now. It probably will never be a measurable amount. It'll just probably hit the surface or very close to it and just go right into the air, from what I understand.
The plume is expanding. It's moving to the west. It's moved past Shush Mountain Resort and is extending towards Shanty Creek Road. It goes beyond Del Mason Road and Zwischendorf Trail. As it moves to the west, we have noticed that the plume was starting to have a slight, perhaps, turn to the south. And so in 2015, we installed a number of wells down gradient of the known location of the toe of the plume, so that we could get a better handle on where the plume might be moving, not only from whether or not there is TCE present in the wells, but also, as I described earlier, so that we could actually map how groundwater is moving. So taking those snapshots. In 2015, the wells were sampled, and there was no TCE detected in any of the wells. In the spring of 2016, one of the new wells that we installed had TCE in it. And that discovery in 2016 has been very important, because it does suggest, based on the geometry of where we find TCE and where we don't, we see that in the shallow groundwater system out at the site, it does appear that the plume is beginning to track a little bit more to the south-southwest. So that information is very important. There is a residential area that occurs to the west-northwest of the current plume lobe, and so we're watching that carefully, and we're installing new wells in 2017 to get a better handle on where that plume is likely to go over the next couple of years, and to verify that it is in fact going to move towards the Shanty Creek at the golf course. So one of the components that we look at is the vertical extent of the plume. So we know the plume is moving from the southeast towards the west, and we have a number of wells that are screened at different depths within the aquifer, from the water table all the way down to this basal clay. And in there, we sample the wells regularly to try to understand not only where is the plume when we look at it from the top down, but where is it vertically within the aquifer. And that's particularly important down at the toe of the plume, because we have a municipal well field, the Cedar River well field, that occurs within a very thick section of aquifer sands that are shown here in this yellow. They're drawing their water from this zone. Now the orange that we depict here, these are zones that are low permeability, so they're made of silts and clays, where groundwater has a difficult time moving upwards or downwards through that material. So it's a layer of protection, if you will, for the Cedar River well field, but it's not a perfect layer of protection. Groundwater will move from the overlying zone down into that underlying aquifer, particularly if there's a lot of water being removed from this underlying zone. So by pumping, you could potentially influence where this plume moves. And as you can see, we kind of have two lobes. We have a very shallow lobe, and then we have an intermediate lobe. And we see the very shallow lobe moving continuously across the site and does not appear to be affected by the influence of the pumping. The one that we watch in particular to be protective of the Cedar River well field is this intermediate zone.
What is the end game? Where do we see this plume going? There's a whole team of hydrogeologists attached to this plume, and I don't begin to step on their toes. What they've kind of forecasted is there are two lobes to the plume. This north lobe is venting to Cedar River, and we haven't seen any ill effects on aquatic life. The western lobe of this plume seems to be heading to, and maybe eventually hit, Lake Bel Air. With that, there has recently been a little bit of a new development. This map is from 2016, and I have a recent map showing that this western lobe of the plume has actually dived down a little bit, and it's not going exactly where it was forecasted to go. So I know there has been a geologic change kind of below the surface. So everything has been pretty similar up until now, and all of a sudden the geology is changing. So even though there are, I don't want to say guesses, even though they're predicting where the plume is going to travel, it seems that it is not quite as concrete as it has been in the past. And this western lobe of the plume is moving a little bit over 300 feet per year.